Chris, your show is so impressive. Is there an evolution of this show, where an idea came about that organizes the whole thing?
Yes, it sort of came out of in one of my last shows, I had a piece that people loved the enlargement and the detail of, and the oddities of the abstraction qualities within the image that I was working. And then my daughter wanted me to paint a picture of my daughter-in-law's wedding bouquet. So I had the wedding bouquet, and as it dried, I loved watching it dry and morph into different colors, different shapes. And then as the image dried, you could see the structures and how the plants grew up and how they evolved and how they were nourished and how they changed. So this is the piece that I did, and while I was doing it, the piece was drying. And then it also had a piece of a wedding piece in there. I love trying to paint white. In watercolor, you don't use white. These aren't all, there's no gouache in these watercolors, so there's no white and there's no black. So I really got interested in how to do a series of white. I wanted to do a white series. And so then I began.
So all the white there is the color of the paper?
Right, so, and so I decided I would work on that. So most of the pieces behind you are the pieces that I started with. I originally thought I would have an all-white show. So I started with these and then moved into, you can see how detailed they are. So I looked for things that as things dried, images dried, you could see how the details of the objects. I mean, I think these things were probably green at once, but I mean, how the leaves, and then you can see how the vines are drying out and twisting, and so you get to see a little more. I don't know, I played with the composition. You get to see a different range of color.
Right.
And it's a different kind of exploration.
You say that a different range of color comes from the drying process, or?
Well, that you do, but I mean, yes, I think so, because I mean, I hate to tell you what this is, but it's a pumpkin vine.
Right. Now that brings up another question that I'm interested in.
There's no titles.
In which sense do you find these to be abstract? Because they are from at least fragments of nature.
Right, because I just don't. If you don't put the name of the object on, perception is comes from a memorization in your mind.
Yeah.
And so you remember what you've been taught. So
right.
If I tell you what this really is, you're not going to look at it.
I think that's a paradox, isn't it? That getting you off the object and getting you off your memory, which is almost like the digital version of things that you know by rote,
right,
forces you to look at the object,
well, that's why
which is less there because it's abstract.
I didn't want to put the name of any object on it, because then you'd say, oh, this is it, and not,
right.
Like this
right.
one. This one, I actually do have the real name on it, but most of us are from the East and don't know what the type of cactus this is. And most of us don't realize that the cactus is definitely wood fiber on the inside, a different kind of fibrous interior. And when I painted this, it reminds me of cathedrals. Renaissance cathedrals are actually.
Oh yeah, it looks like an arch.
German
looks like a doorway. So tell me about your show that's coming up.
Well, I guess most of the paintings I did during the pandemic, when I didn't see anybody because I'm here by myself with the dog. I would take him for a walk, and then I have this little yard outside for him, and I lie down there and look up. and do meditation like that, like looking up at the sky, and then things would be changing and moving around. And then I would just start to feel good, and then I would come in here, and that's when I would start doing one of the paintings.
Or are
Well, I
they
think
purely
they're
abstract?
They're influenced by nature.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're influenced by it, but they're not really trying to be something that's
Right.
in nature. It's more like trying to impart a positive feeling that you would get after you do that, after you're in nature for some time. You know how people like to go in nature and then they start to feel better?
Right.
They even have something now, I heard of something called forest bathing, where people go in nature and then they feel better. So if you can try it. After I did that, I would feel more positive, and I would just feel like different inside, and that's when I wanted to paint, and I would try to keep that feeling in my body. It's like a felt sense that you get. So I would try to keep that when I was painting, and when I would get away from it, I try to come back to it and just stay simple. That, and it's also kind of the uncertainty, and like, where do you turn in uncertainty? You can't really turn to what's going on around you when it's kind of like in chaos. So then you just turn to a feeling that comes from inside that you might get from just being in nature.
Are the works that are going to be in the show all consistent with that theme, and were they all done recently?
Yeah, they were all done recently. They were all consistent with that theme. I had a lot more. This one that's here, you can't see, it's wrapped in plastic. These two, I didn't know if I would include them. My friend Jonathan came over here and he kind of curated it. Like, he told me what paintings to put in and what to not put in. And since I thought I respected him, I thought I'll do what he said.
Well, it's definitely a good policy when you hire any professional or speak to any professional to follow the advice that they give you. I mean, otherwise, what's the point of bothering to consult? I feel
Well, you're right, and I guess like I would say, well, maybe I'll include this, or maybe I'll do that, and it wasn't something he said, and as soon as I did it, it just didn't feel right, so I'm just going to stick with what he said.
Uh-huh. Now, I was familiar with your work in the early 90s because we belonged to the same co-op together, the
And which
Protean Gallery.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah, and that's where I first met you, way back in like 1992.
I remember that. It caught the hardware stores there now.
Right, there
What
on
do you still
Passyunk Avenue. And that gallery was consumed into High Wire Gallery, and now I don't think
Were you in Highwire? I don't remember.
I didn't make the transfer from
I
Protean Gallery
see.
to High Wire.
Right.
And then I saw you again when you were in the 3rd Street Gallery.
Wow.
Isn't that true? Right? Isn't that where
is
you went
true.
next?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I like that Protean, and I was sorry to see it go.
It was enjoyable. That was my first gallery experience, and it was very.
Mine too.
It was very self-validating to finally be part of a gallery. But I noticed that in those days you used to paint realistically,
Yes.
with a hard edge around thing.
That's exactly right. I did do that.
Can you explain to me the shift from that to abstract work?
I hope. Well, I always liked abstract work, and I would do that hard edge because it was easy for me to do.
Yeah.
And then when I would look at art, I would like abstract work, but I was not able to do it.
Uh-huh.
I would try to do it, but it didn't look the way that I wanted.
Huh.
So then one time at High Wire, we went over to the mill, and we were having this get together with musicians, and then artists were supposed to paint while musicians were playing. You just paint anything. And when I did that, I felt pretty good, and I liked that. And you know, they weren't finished paintings, but I felt like I was. It's more like I was doing the kind of the felt sense, like what I felt. I was doing that, and even though it didn't look that great, I thought I'll try to pursue it. So then I did both. And then I remember one time I was in the Rittenhouse Square art show, and I had one half of the type of art you're referring to, like hard edge, and the other half was not this, but abstract work. But I do remember last year I met somebody at Muse who had one of those paintings from Protein. I thought, oh, what he thinks I should have asked him. He said, I have this, you know, and from time to time I meet people and then I don't know what to think, because I think, well, it's not the same.
No.
I still have some of them, a few of them. I felt like I was doing that to do what people wanted, you know. I think people like that. I'm not being very adventurous, because I thought people would buy this, so I'm being a coward. People buy this, so I keep doing it. And it was fun, but it was like I knew what was going to happen. The time that I was doing it was spent like perfecting something, you know, like perfecting an edge or perfecting something. But now when I paint, the time is spent like just being there and seeing what happens, and then knowing when to stop, knowing what feels right. To me, that's more of a challenge, and that's more what I wanted to do.
A lot of people who talk to me about art say that they think the biggest challenge is knowing when to stop.
Well, what happened? I used to all the time overwork paintings, and then I would get so angry. And so now, and I would see like I would always think something else has to be done. And even in my life, I think this has to be changed. This has to be changed. If I just sit there, I think of all the things that are wrong. This has to be changed. This is not right. So when I would get something that I like in a painting, instead of trying to continue, I just leave it there for a while or put it in the other room. And then maybe later, a long time later, if I still think that, I'll go back to it.
An uncomfortable truth of the art market is that even as artists of color gain greater representation, the art world system of values remains built on principles of exclusion and ownership. This affects all of us. When the voices and images of certain groups are stifled, we all lose. The murder of George Floyd and subsequent BLM movement gave the members of Muse Gallery a vital wake-up call. We've always believed that presenting and supporting work by artists of diverse backgrounds representing a multiplicity of perspectives is essential and adds a much-needed dimension to our gallery as well as to the community at large. We propose to act on our belief. Muse Gallery has spent much time over the last year discussing how to address this situation. Being an artist and creating art can be an expensive endeavor. It's a difficult path for anyone to take, and particularly so for those who have been marginalized or have few resources. Therefore, we are offering a 2-year, all-expense-paid membership to any black artist with a strong commitment to art making and high-quality work. Membership provides a close-knit community of experienced professional artists, a month-long solo show in our highly visible location within the 2-year commitment, 1 to 2 group shows, and monthly mutual critiques. What we require from candidates is the commitment to attend monthly meetings and gallery sitting 1 day per month. Interested artists should please visit musegalleryphiladelphia.com and follow the application procedures.